Boys and girls, ladies and gents, welcome to another episode of Clutch Conversations. It's your boy Mike. We back at you one more again, live on another Thursday night. Good to be back in the building, man. I hope y'all been doing well. Definitely know I've been doing good. Been super busy, but definitely doing well, man. So I'm definitely hoping the same for y'all. Big shout out to everybody in the chat. We're going to get to the chat here in just a few minutes. But first and foremost, big shout out to my lovely wife, Takara. Make sure y'all show us some love in the comments. And don't stop there. Make sure you show the channel some love as well. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and smash that notification bell so you can get notifications each and every time we drop a video here on the channel. We got Tom tonight, man. It's going to be a dope episode. Definitely looking forward to tapping in with him and chatting about his background and kind of his thoughts on the BallPython industry in general and the secrets to success and longevity in this industry. So gonna be a real good conversation, man. But before we get to the show, definitely got some housekeeping items we want to cover. Make sure you following us everywhere you can find us. You can find us on Morph Market, of course. Definitely check out what we got posted. You can find us on Instagram at Herp Collectors and Herp Collectors Network. So make sure you follow both of those pages. Check us out on Facebook as well. And then also check us out on all major podcast platforms. You can find Clutch Conversations along with every show that's in the Herp Collectors Network catalog on major podcasting platforms like Apple, Spotify, all that good stuff. So make sure you tapping in with us there as well. And definitely check out the website, clutchconversations.com, and we appreciate the support. Speaking of support, make sure you support USARK and USARK Florida. The link for both organizations is in the description of this video. Get your membership, drop some donations, spread the word to help support both these organizations that's protecting our rights as reptile keepers. And make sure you tap in with us on the Double Clutch Patreon. Been having a lot of fun in the Patreon, man. The Zoom calls is my favorite, man. It's really a time to kick it and chill and hang out, get to know people even better. Have a lot of dope times in Double Clutch Patreon. So definitely make sure you're checking that out. And make sure you check out all the shows on the Herp Collectors Network. 7 shows total. We got Conjure Corner coming on every Monday, 9 p.m. Eastern time. And then we got several other shows. So make sure you tap in with each one of them. Each one of those got kind of like their own little special thing that they're focusing on, their different styles. It's real dope. So definitely make sure you are checking that out. We're going to kick a sponsor video, and then we're going to be right back here in a few seconds to holler at the chat. Join Canova's Patreon today and unlock hundreds of hours of exclusive educational content designed to help you run a successful BallPython business. Get insider information on the latest genetics, hot new combos, and market trends. Enjoy guidance from the world's leading BallPython designer. Memberships are currently available up to the student tier, a tier that includes a 5% discount on all animals. Hey, I've been in this Patreon for over 4 years, and it's been worth every dime. So don't delay. Join the Canova Patreon today. Art comes in many forms. At Armless Angels, it comes to life. In life, success doesn't come to you. You go to it. In this game, forward thinking is the key to innovation and staying relevant. Plan your work and work your plan. Lose yourself in the art. Lose yourself with wetter morphs. Big shout out to the sponsors, man. Appreciate y'all's support. Let's see, we got supporting us in this chat. What's up, Shauna? The Sultaness of Support herself. Appreciate you coming out. We got Thomas from Low Life Exotics in the building. Appreciate you coming out. We got Dwight, the Pie Man, in the building. Appreciate you coming out. John from Lucky's Pythons. What's up, bro? Appreciate you coming out. We got Eric's Morph Factory in the building. What's good, homie? Appreciate you coming out. We got Logan from Benford Reptiles in the building. Appreciate you coming out. We got John from Morph Forge in the building. What's up, man? Big shout out to the Morph Forge fam. They were on the panel with me and Epic talking about getting started in the podcast game, and the interview was epic. So if you haven't checked that out, definitely make sure you check that out. Big shout out to John, Jason, and Jamie. Dickie, what's up? Appreciate you coming out. We got another John in the building. Mission Morphs in the building. And we got Wifey pulling double duty. Appreciate you. And we're going to stop it right there. We're going to kick this intro, and then we'll be right back with the guests.
Baby, baby, won't you listen to me? I got that flavor. I know you're dying to feed. I ain't no dancer, just got some hip in my feet. Now throw your hands up. Ooh, you bring the lighter, I got the fuse. You make a fire, I'll add the fuel. Follow my lady, just watch your shoes. Gotta turn the heat up to get this cold. Who you know who looking like this for real? Who you know who looking like this? Who you know who looking like this for real? Who you know who looking like this? Who you know who looking like this for real? Who you know who looking like this? Who you know who looking like this for real? Who you know who looking like this?
Oh my gosh, my stomach hurts.
Tom, what's up, man? How's it going?
Hey, what's going on? How are you?
Doing pretty good. Pretty good. Can't complain. Welcome to the show. Appreciate you coming on.
Oh, thanks for having me. I watch
Yes.
all the time, so it should be good.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I appreciate it, man. It's definitely long overdue.
Yeah.
So how things going your way? You pretty busy this week?
Yeah, I'm busy. Right now it's just the time of the year, I think. And work is really has me busy. I have a rental house that a tenant moved out in, and they didn't leave it in a very good spot for me. So I ended up having to replace a bunch of stuff which I didn't plan on, and that's got me stressed. Fortunately, like I don't have a bunch of hatchlings right now, so the snakes are kind of like at bay at the moment. So I'm just doing some light breeding this year, and my numbers are low because, you know, I don't have any, usually hatch stuff out midsummer through fall. So that's one good thing, that I don't have to care for a ton of, you know, babies and adults right now. So it's kind of like that, at least I'm catching a break on, but everything else is just insane right now.
Yeah, I definitely know the feeling, man. Work is crazy for me right now. This already like my busiest time of year. And then on top of like the normal busy things of this time of year, we got a whole bunch of projects and conversions. It's just all kinds of crazy stuff. So I can definitely feel you on that front.
Yeah, but I'll get through it.
Yeah. Just put your head down, get through it, and then be out on the other side.
Yeah, for sure.
So you said light breeding. You mean light breeding for where you are in the season, or are you like consciously doing less pairings this year?
Consciously doing less pairings just because that's kind of how things have been dictated. I don't do shows. I do all online and sales. And just, you know, the last probably year and a half, it's just, it's slowed enough that I don't want to just produce. I don't want to produce animals and dilute the market any further at the moment until things kind of stabilize with the economy maybe getting better, in addition to just having the numbers out there that we have come down a little bit more. I'm only really shooting for hard to hit stuff and first breedings, first kind of, you know, combos for me personally. So I could the bread and butter stuff that I've been making for the last, I don't know, 7, 8, 9 years, I'm putting that aside for this year because I know what it looks like. It's still exciting, but I'm looking more for just hitting, the hard to hit odds, and more double, triple recessive combos, and some new stuff that might add a little bit more excitement into at least the projects that I'm working, which mainly at this point are my black pastel with specific projects where I think they'll hit. I'd say everything, but that was a couple of years ago. Now it's very controlled, thought out pairings rather than just throw everything, together and see what you get. I don't really have the time anymore to have that many hatchlings and market them without doing shows. So, having that mindset, I'm only going to do what I can handle and be comfortable with, and still try to hit new next level stuff, but just not overburden myself. Like, sometimes you accidentally have those years where all the females you breed, not all of them, but a large portion go, and you're like, oh shit. But it was in a good way the past, I don't know. I never saw a slowdown that a lot of people talk about before COVID. I mean, a lot of people say the 2015, 16, 17 was slow. It wasn't for me. It really didn't kind of get slow until recently. So with that, I'm just trying to change my strategy and not make what everyone else is making or what I've made a bunch of times before, unless it's by accident. So that's kind of the game plan going into this year.
That's interesting. That's interesting you say that, as far as like not being, or about it being slow, or people saying it was slow before COVID, because that's always what I heard. Like
I hear that a lot, and I'm
years.
like, I don't know, I didn't see that. And I talked to some other breeders recently too. We just kind of, that topic came up, and I don't know where that was happening. The last real slow time before this was like probably between 08 and maybe 11. Like that was going way back, and that was a whole different ball game then. But it was also an oversaturation of certain morphs, not too unlike what it is now, but it was different because the combos and potential was just being scratched at that point. We were still far away from where we are now.
What year did you start breeding?
My first year that I bred was 2003, and
Okay.
the first clutches were 2004.
Okay. And so it slowed down 2008, 2011. What do you think led to that ramp up?
The slowdown was oversaturation of incomplete dominance and dominant genes. And a perfect example is Mojaves were really oversaturated at that point. I mean, black pastels, cinnamons, yellow bellies, people were just getting a male and breeding them to any normal female to get like, and at the time they were in the thousands. I mean, a lot of those. I mean, I think yellow bellies are maybe 1,000, but like all the other ones were like 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 in that time frame. Or yeah, I'm trying to think, like 07, 08. Yeah, it was about 2,000 to 3,000 probably for Mojaves and cinnamons and stuff. So I think it was just an oversaturation then. And then it got better around 2010 or 11. And I think a lot of things, I'm not sure what the catalyst was, but I know Oz proved the Orange Dream had a super form then. Bananas were really starting to get huge because they were getting into hands of people that, weren't dropping well at the time. I guess they were still going for a lot, but I think more people were getting their hands on bananas and figuring out how that male maker, female maker thing was working out. And this was like 11 or 12. Cause I remember going to Tinley in 2012 and had a really good show. And my table was like, it was there. I didn't have much. I had like 2 small displays, but for like, I shared a table with Oz, and I was on the end, and he had all his Orange Dream stuff. And I think at the time the super was already known, so he was killing it. But I had some black pastel combos, and like I had a much better show than I thought I would. But it was Tinley, and it was huge. I mean, it was nothing unlike anything that I have seen on the East Coast, the little regional shows. It was crazy. But I had, I'd been there a few times before, but that was the first time I actually put snakes out, and they sold pretty well. So it was that was a good time. It started spiking up right after, I'd say 11 and 12. And then you started getting introduced to some names that you didn't even know they were names yet. Like I was talking to people like, Mark Mandick was known at the time, but he wasn't like known how he is now. and we would pretty much hang out with him most of that weekend. You know, Levance, I met him there, and we had some phone conversations prior to that meeting. Will Morose was probably, he wasn't even like, he was still kind of like getting started then, and so was I. So we were kind of on the same level, and you know, we hung out a little bit. So it's kind of neat to see those guys back in the day, and you just don't know where they're going to go in the future. And all of those ones that I mentioned are killing it now. I mean, they're still tops in the game, and really took off from that point. So it's kind of cool to look back 13 years and see the progression of some of those guys that you met. And you knew just talking to them that they were passionate. They had a pretty good head on their shoulders. They knew what they were talking about, and they were doing it the right way. They weren't just like throwing everything together and crossing their fingers. They had plans, like, you know, what people do now. You just saw the beginnings of that. Like, if I put these genes together, I'm hoping to like hit on this particular color. And it's nice to see, you know, the success of some of those guys, you know, that you knew way back in the day. You know, they're still kicking.
Yeah, they definitely are still kicking for sure. So talk about your process for like planning your pairings and planning your projects. Like what does that look like for you, and like where do you get your inspiration, things of that nature?
A lot of it is I'm watching these podcasts and on Morph Market pretty routinely through the week, and I try to find things that pop out and stand out to me. You know, that catches your eye. Then you look at the ingredients and you're like, okay, well, I'm one gene off of that. I have all that stuff in my racks. Do I try to and originally my plan with some of these projects were I'm going to try to repeat that with my black pastel, because I know it throws a little bit different looks and colors, you know, just see what it does. Because sometimes it really pops with things, and other times it is what it is. But I would find myself kind of going on those roads, but I didn't want to really repeat big projects. I wanted to find like a 4 gene look and sub out a gene, or think maybe if we add that. And I'm sure everyone else is doing that, but it's who can kind of get it out there and show it in this best form. And I'm always thinking, you know, I can do pretty well with the black pastel combos. And that was inspiration, how I kind of like formulate what my projects are going to be. And even still to this day, like I like certain genes. I like ultramels for the recessive. I don't have a ton of it, but I've been working it for a few years, and I have a lot of hets now. And I think like there's some certain things with that I still want to do. I still want to see how certain interactions occur, like dark genes with that orange color is what I like, because it makes like a purplish and like a brighter orange. You know, you add, I think red stripe and ultramel is still a really nice combo that we haven't seen a lot of. I bought one from Justin a few years ago, a red stripe ultramel spot nose het clown, and I've been putting him on a lot of stuff and creating, you know, red stripe clown head ultramel combos, black pastel. So I think that's got a little bit of legs to go forward. I have basically, you know, I just look for what I like to see. I like a lot of like super chocolate stuff. I like super blackhead. I don't have any chocolate, but one day I want to get it. I just don't have a collection big enough to have like one of everything. And I'm really specific, and like I don't want to bring anything in unless I'm going to use it immediately, and it's got to be the right gene. But there's things I have on like a list that I want hurricane. I don't have any hurricane, but I love super hurricane, and I like what the interactions, you know, that makes. But right now, what I have in my collection, I'm kind of focusing on, you know, just a few genes, but I'm trying to maximize like the outcome of those genes. And, you know, I'm really into super forms of incomplete dominance that aren't pure black or pure white snakes. And I think that's where I really want to focus a lot of effort and get like a recessive and like 2 supers or 3 supers. And I think that's hard to hit. I mean, if you think about it, that's like
real hard.
A 3 gene recessive, 4 gene recessive visual. And Will Morose brought this up. I don't know, it was probably 4 or 5 months ago. He was hammering this point home, and it really makes sense that the market has really gotten into triple and quad hets. Everybody wants to do those, not just hets, but visuals. Everybody wants to do the visual, and I get that. But also, let's not forget that the incomplete dominants are a visual het of another cool snake. Like, Super Orange Dream, Super Red Stripe, Super Blackhead, Super Hurricane, naming stuff that's not solid, trying to like go down that path. And I think there's so much to do with that, that it we'll never see the end of it. And that's the cool thing about these pairings. When you say like, what do I look for? I stand in my snake room a lot and just look at my racks, and then I don't do anything. I just stand there. I find myself frozen because I'm like, this female would be perfect with this male, but then that other male would be great in 3 or 4 years. I'd make even cooler stuff potentially. So what choice do you do? Do you make it now with this one female that's perfect, but there's 2 males that you could be like this year or 3-4 years from now? And I think in the past, I would be like this year, of course, anytime, because I want to see it now. And it's hard to have that patience, where that long game where you're like 3 years now, if I make these hets, grow them all up, and then breed those, or bring in a powerful male with the females, I can make first of its kind, stuff that nobody has seen. And really, like, when you start hitting on that stuff, you're so far ahead of the game, and then people start chasing that project, but you already have all of the combos just laid out, like all the hets sitting there, and then you can really just kind of like guide where you want to go with that if you want, like lead the project. So that's
I struggle with that myself too.
Yeah.
In terms of like the short term versus the long term.
Mm-hmm.
It's been instances where like I kind of been on the fence about doing like, should I do this pairing or should I do that pairing? If I do this pairing, I can see something pretty cool right now, but if I do that pairing, I can have the building blocks for something later on down the road. And I usually just kind of, I don't know, like some things I'll go one way, like as far as the shorter term thing, and then others I'll go with the longer term. It really just kind of depends, but that's kind of the beauty of it too. It's kind of like figuring out like which route you want to go, because I do want to see like really cool snakes in the racks when I open the racks. And so,
yeah, exactly. Like it's when you see the hets, you're like, man, the potential, but like you can't show them off. Like I went to take pictures and just kind of stay relevant on like Instagram and whatnot, and I'm like, well, this het is cool to talk about, but it's not really, it's okay. Like I have a lot of that stuff, and sometimes I'll just post a picture because people appreciate what the genes are, even though they're still not visual, the potential. But a lot of it is, you get the likes and everything for the visual stuff, and I try to do a mix of that. Like every year I'm like, okay, I want some holdbacks, and I want to build for the future, so I'm going to do this pairing that statistically is, I'm looking for females, and I'm looking for like visual incomplete dominant looks, but I know that the recessives are in there from the breeding. But also that's going to float you down the road, because if you just do everything that's pretty right now, you're going to get left behind, because that's the way the market is now. It's so fast right now, especially with the genetic testing. It's even faster, where you really got to start thinking like, what projects is everybody doing? And I fall victim to this too. I have plenty of Desert Ghost Clown projects, but mine are, they have a unique spin. Like they have my line of black pastel with some other, red stripe. I really like the red stripe black pastel interactions. Brings out like a nice rusty color orange, different looking. And I really want to see the super red stripe black pastel, but then put that into a DG clown, and I think you're talking some uniquely like nice looking, potential there. So again, everyone's doing certain projects, or like everyone jumped on that train, and everyone knows that, but you put your own spin on it, and you can kind of still steer where you want to go with it, and like differentiate yourself from the pack. Like don't just make DG clowns. Make DG clowns, super this, super that, and then throw in maybe like a hypo too, or something, down the road, work that in. So it's you want to be unique enough, but you want to follow the trends to a point, but you want to differentiate yourself a little bit too, to make that distinction that like, this is my unique stamp of what I'm working with.
That makes sense. Another thing too that I personally like is having codoms like in my double and triple projects. What are your thoughts on that? Like, do you feel like too many people kind of shoot for just like the basic double or the basic triple, as opposed to taking the time to work those codoms in it?
Well, I think that's the beginning phase of a new recessive. I think everybody, when a new recessive, and when I say new, I'm thinking of like Monsoon or Sunset, and they're probably not new, but they've been out for less time than like albinos, clowns, pieds, ghosts, hypos. But you take those, and I think immediately out of the gate, you're looking just to put them in with a pied or a clown, or even a puzzle is newish, but not really. It's been around for a while, but it wasn't worked really heavily. But I think you're going to see those just straight recessive to recessives. Then as it gets a little bit more mature, people are going to start piling in, and the people that have the volume and the big collections are the ones that can really like jump to the front of the pack with this and throw in like the codoms, especially the hot codoms. Like, you're not throwing like old school codoms that nobody really cares about. And I don't want to like name a bunch of stuff, but like pastels and Mojaves are old. I have them, I have them in my collection. I'm not throwing them into my best projects, even though I still like some of the looks that they bring. But I also have to play to the market. Like, if the market doesn't like that gene, unfortunately, I may have to scale back on breeding it, because it might be a detriment to selling that snake if people don't want that look at all. Even though sometimes it makes it like pastel with DG is great, pastel with puzzle is great. I mean, super pastel puzzle is probably one of the best looking puzzles out there. And you throw in throw an OD with that, or yellow belly, other brightening, enhancing genes, and that's a good looking snake. But I think it's a double-edged sword, because you're making one of the prettiest puzzle combos that I've seen, but you're making one that people are going to shy away from because they don't want that super pastel out. So it's kind of, each their own, I guess. I mean, even banana, I see a little bit is falling into that category over the years. So I
into the category in terms of people not wanting it.
Yeah, like some of the it depends on what you put it into. Like, I think we got smart over the years when everybody was producing gray snakes back in, and this was back probably in the 2010 to 2015, when everyone's throwing like the kitchen sink, they're all of their incomplete dominance together and dominance, and they were ending up with just different shades of gray and a little bit of pattern here, a little bit of pattern there. Very powerful snake genetically, but what's the point if you're going to if you want to show them off? Now, you can work all that stuff back out of it, but I think the common threads were discovered what they were, and then people kind of started going more into the codom world, the recessive world, which you don't really see a whole lot of recessives. They all interact in some way. I mean, other than one project that I was looking to work back in the day, which you think about it now, it's just stupid, was hypo albino. Because I was thinking they were going to look like sun glow boas, which were really hypo albino boas. And this was back in the early 2000s. I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to do hypo ball pythons to albino ball pythons and make a really crazy orange. And it's just the opposite, I think. I think I saw somebody made one and basically scrapped that project. But I did do another project that sounds kind of silly now, but at the time was pretty hot, was the Snow Project, which was an albino to an axanthic. And I didn't even do the good one, which was like at the time the VPI, and then some people argue the Snake Keeper was a good axanthic. I had Jolliffe axanthic and albino snows, which it was kind of cool to hatch them out. But then after they hatched out, we were hitting that point in time where Ivories were being hatched and blue-eyed Lucies, and at that point, that almost white on white snake kind of took a back seat to all these pure white snakes, especially if they had blue eyes. Like, the bells destroyed that snow market. So just going back to some of those old projects that I look back on that I was really into, that was just like you were saying earlier, trying to think what can I do that's different? And that wasn't totally different because other people were doing snow projects, but it wasn't like everybody had them. It was well, I could be one of 5 people or 10 people that I've seen produce snows. And they were going for a pretty penny back in the day. Any of that stuff was in the early 2000s. But now it's more, you really got to be sharp and you really got to pay attention. You can't miss a beat anymore, or else you're going to fall behind, and you got to buy your way back up to the front. You got to start bringing in this stuff that you didn't want to spend the money on because you stopped producing for 2, 3, 4 years down the road, and you're just producing for right now. And the right now, unfortunately for me, I'm not moving stuff as quickly as I used to, and I don't want to cheapen the project and really sell with some of these prices. So I'm not making them. Stuff that I see has dropped a lot, I don't want to overproduce projects that are like close to my heart that like have been great and just kind of run it down to no value at all. I'd rather just not do it and try to shoot for like a higher, harder to hit combination down the road. And that way it's like you can at least sit on that price and be like, it is what it is. Like you can't just make this overnight. So that's kind of the philosophy going forward.
I feel like Clown Pie, like it's almost criminal, like what happened to that project. Like I just feel like it just tanked overnight.
And I have that price. Yeah, I have double heads and visual clown. Like I stopped making them. And what I'm saying is I have a lot of that stuff in the racks, but I'm not going to go forward with that because I kind of get that sometimes the pie drowns out. I mean, I totally get that. Some of the subtleties and the intricacies of like the clown that you want to see. And for some reason, I hatch a lot of high white stuff, and that used to be cool, but then the market flipped on that, and everybody wants low white. And I do too. I mean, I like seeing more pattern.
Me too.
But I have clown pied stuff that's ready to go this year, and I'm not going to do it. I'm going to go other directions with that. And then I have these 50% head pieds in all my collection, and I'll test them, just to see. Like I have a lot of puzzle hypo stuff that's head pied because most of my pied visual pieds were where my hypo lived from years ago. So I have a lot of hypo pied stuff. But I also, I have puzzle in that, but I don't necessarily want to put pied in a lot of pattern changing type mutations just because you can't see it. But yeah, the clown pie project dropped pretty quick. And like I said, I never even took mine to fulfillment. It's just, they're in there if ever anything cool comes up, or if I'm just bored and I want to make like a double recessive, it's there. But also I'm starting to get in the mindset too of if I have these females that are breeder females sitting in my racks, if it's year 2 and I didn't breed her last year and I don't have plans to breed her this year, the good thing is that those are always easy to get rid of. So I can kind of move on those. And I look at it too, like this might be good next year, but I'm like, I haven't bred this female for 2 years. And just because I didn't have anything to put with her, I might as well let someone else work with her. And that's kind of what I tell my customers. I'm like, well, at least she's getting put to use this year, and she's got a lot of potential, just nothing that I want to pursue right this moment. And typically back in the day, I get rid of those females and regret it immediately. I think now I'm trying to like convince myself that it's just part of the industry, part of the hobby. You kind of got to move on from some of those projects that I can't keep everything. I can't shelve everything forever. And even though there's some good value and nice potential there, you got to stick with what your plan is, especially now being very selective and very picky with where I'm going. I don't want to just produce, I don't want to say just produce the stuff that you don't want anymore. And you've kind of made like a bunch of those already. And it's like, I know what that looks like. I want to start, or not start, but continue to move forward with this and not move backward.
Yeah, that was the exact question I was going to ask you in terms of the ones you weren't breeding, like what the runway was for those. So I appreciate you answering that.
Yeah,
so,
it's kind of like not set in stone, but that's kind of the way I rationalize with myself. Like I love that snake. When I hatched that snake out, I had so much potential for it. And by the time it became an adult, the market has moved so quickly since 2020. It's so quick, and with the genetic testing, it's even quicker. That snake took 2.5 years. It's up to weight. It's ready to go, and I have no plans to do anything with it. And I sell it for less than I would have got, like much less out of the egg. Because out of the egg, you're like, holy shit, this snake is awesome. But I'm keeping it because I want to work it. And then plans change. You're like, it's funny, in 2 years' time, it's not even, it doesn't mean anything to my particular breeding anymore. And it had such potential when I first saw it. So just not trying to overproduce and have a ton of animals that I have a hard time getting rid of online. I just won't. I'd soon not breed them at this point.
Yeah, I've definitely been there too. Like hatching something, holding it back, and now when it's finally breeding size, you're like, I don't know if I even want to go that direction anymore.
I know it sucks,
and it feels bad because like you spent like 2-3 years raising it up.
Mm-hmm. It was such a valuable. You look at it with such like hope. And like, this is going to be awesome. And then as time goes on, you kind of see other people making stuff. And you're like, well, I don't even want to do that anymore. Like that market's kind of at its peak, I think.
Or you had something in that same project that's way better. You're like, I'm just go with that.
Yeah,
one.
exactly. Something else pops up. You might get really lucky with like not 1 in 16, but a 1 in 32 or 1 in 64 odds, and that snake now becomes super valuable, like a male. You're like, well, I'm putting that male on everything that I can, and that female then goes to that male. Yeah, I've done that a lot where I've kind of like thrown caution to the curb with these are the genes that you have in this snake specifically for this reason, and that's gone when you buy or hatch out like a really nice male that you're like, wow, this is where the market's going, and I'm going to pursue that now. So it's kind of cool because it's always changing. Like I said earlier, you gotta stay tuned. Like you can't sleep, and I feel like I slept through the years I was telling you that were pretty good, like the late teens, like the 2015 to 19.
Mm-hmm.
Those years were good, but I was very much just in my own world. I didn't go to shows. I sold online, didn't watch anything that was out there, didn't listen to podcasts. Although I listened to some podcasts, but I had no idea how many were being formed on YouTube and stuff. And then like there's a whole world opened up with like, I didn't know people were doing that. And if you watch these and listen to these, you can kind of get a feel. Not every project is divulged. I mean, there's secrets, but you can kind of get a feel to what the market wants and what people are into. And I use the YouTube podcast that, like tonight there's a lot typically. And I mean, any night there's a lot anymore. But I try to use that as what are people into and what is exciting the market. Just to kind of keep some of that in the back of my mind when I'm doing my planning, like what male do I bring in this year? Typically, I try to make my own females, and I bring in a powerful male to throw on the double, triple heads, and then with all these genes, I'm like, what male would I need? And then I used to scour Morph Market for like weeks, months to find that male, and sometimes you wouldn't find it. Now you can find what you need. I find some projects or things that I used to really not find any info on. I find those quite often. I guess it's just time. More people have produced things, but you also want to find things that not everybody has. So like search availability and see how many are there. If there's like 4 pages of that project, well, then you're late to the game. You should move on, or unless you're going to do something crazy to it. But a lot of times that's the determining factor. Like I get this great idea. I'm like, I want to go see what that could potentially look like. And you're like, holy shit, everybody's already had this idea. And I'm just now realizing it. That's kind of a wake up call that you get.
So going back to shed testing, like what are your overall general thoughts about shed testing? Like you feel like it's good for the industry, bad for the industry, somewhere in between? Like what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's in between. I think there's the intent is good. I mean, I think it lets you see things. Like I said, it sped things up so fast where recessives are like codoms now. They're incomplete dominant genes. Whereas you can find that out. I mean, I think it's like the prices too have come down quite a bit to get those sheds tested. And I get stuff tested that I think is strategically necessary. That's 50% this, 50% that from breedings. Or sometimes I'll have ivories pop out, like an unintentional yellow belly is in a mix that I didn't know about, and it's in a gene. It's a combo that's not real evident. So I've bred that to a bunch of like, yellow belly combos, and I'd hit ivories. I'm like, well, that ivory could be the snake I'm looking for. I had no idea. So I'd send those sheds out to get like what the known genes were in there tested.
Did you get any pleasant surprises? On any of those ivories?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of it was like, I'd send it out for like 3-4 genes and I get 1 or 2. And the big surprise that I had a few years ago is I had some hypo and some things that it shouldn't have been in. And I was kind of like, these were old. I've had hypo since 2002 or 3. And I was like, well, it kind of makes sense because I have it spread throughout, but my record keeping is good enough that like what probably happened is I had some 50%ers that I bred in another project that, like we were saying, not trying to hit on that hypo, and that passed on. And then that got mixed up in some other things. But those were good surprises. The good part is I tend to do really well when I send hypo sheds out or snakes that are 50% het for hypo. So far, I'm batting almost not 1,000, but like pretty high with them coming back as being proven het hypo.
Nice.
So that's a gene that was so old, and it's kind of had like a revitalization recently, I think, and it's deserved because I think it does add a nice look to things. But it's funny. It's one of those original genes. I think it was the first visual recessive I got was a visual hypo male, and it's the shed testing has allowed for you to go fast forward with some of your projects, not having to prove stuff out anymore, not selling 50 or 66%ers. Now I still would sell like a 50% gene snake if it wasn't the valuable gene that people weren't looking for. If it was the gene that made the snake, sometimes that's clown, puzzle would be an example. I get it tested before I sold it because you can get so much more in asking price. But if it's a gene that kind of the market really doesn't care about, maybe it's an albino gene in a project where albino would not add anything to it, then I'd say 50% or whatever it is, because getting it tested, sometimes the $40 that you're spending on the testing is not going to come back, and it's only $40, but like times however many sheds you send out, it starts to add up.
Right.
And you're like, you got to be strategic. Like, I don't think that's going to move the needle if that proves out this gene. I have a lot of dominant and incomplete dominant stuff like that too, in like super black pastel stuff. I produce those. I don't make as many anymore just because issues that occur from that, like duck billing, spinal, just kind of like little, I guess, minor kinks or major kinks. They sometimes don't come out of the egg. So over the years, I've scaled that back to next to nothing. But I did produce some super black pastel clowns over the past few years, and they were either het clown or clown. So I sent those out, and I think I figured out some markers to look for to see whether it's a het clown, super black pastel, or clown. But it's not. I don't have enough experience or volume to be like it's definitely this or definitely that. A lot of it is eye striping. Even in the super black pastels, sometimes they'll have a real faint eye stripe. A little bit grayer, lighter gray sometimes. And in the clown versions that I have, it's like a clown head. There's no eye stripe. So that was the first thing I was like, well, that makes sense. And then belly, how the pattern comes down to the belly. I thought I had that figured out, but then some stuff threw me off with some testing. Whereas I thought if it was a very hard, distinct line between the dark gray and the white belly, kind of more of a rigid, like start and stop, that's a het. And the clowns had more of like a gradual blending of the color to the white, like a little bit of graying in there. But I've got some results back that show otherwise for some, and I'm going to breed them out. But it's stuff like that helps with those projects, because then I can sell them as true hets or true clowns. I would never sell them before because they're hard to hit healthy, viable super black pastels. I mean, it's an all black snake, all gray, dark gray. Like I said,
as far as like a ratio, like what would you say in terms of healthy ones?
Just over 50%. Depending on the year. And the thing is like, if I went back and looked at all of my records, I could give probably, just off the top of my head, it'd be just over 50%. But then sometimes you get crushed on a clutch where, like back in the day, I was trying to make panda pies years ago, and that was like a big thing. And just train wreck after train wreck. And I was like, and this was mainly one year I tried hard. And after a couple of years of hitting some weird stuff, and the only one I ever made was all white. And it didn't have any black on it. It was just a solid white pied, super black pastel pied that survived. The other ones were just either they came out of the egg deformed, or they were just not. They didn't thrive. They didn't eat well, and if they did eat well, there was something internally going on with them where they wouldn't digest the meals properly, and they kind of get bloated, and they just ended up. They didn't thrive. Like the other snakes were growing, and these snakes were just. I'd have to really baby them and get them to eat, and eventually they'd fall behind so bad that they weren't even thriving. But I didn't have a ton of those hits, fortunately, but I've pretty much since stopped putting known black pastel with other black pastels to make those supers. I just use it as like a just like a dominant gene, like just put it in the mix if I want oranges and, you know, the black pastel classic pattern. But it also does great because it's allelic with Enchi. And I wasn't real keen on that at first, but I've seen some really nice, and I've proven it myself, like some really nice orange coloration that only comes from that black pastel Enchi combo. And it's the same with cinnamon. I think cinnamon Enchi may even be prettier in certain combos.
Really?
Yeah, because they're allelic too. And it makes like a really cool, just like a deep orange rust color. Pretty much obliterates the black pastel pattern. You can't see much of that at all, but it makes an Enchi that's a little bit less reduced, but a really cool color. So I have some ideas with that, but it's hard to do because you're going to have to test. I'm going to have to test it for like black pastel sometimes because, like I said, the classic signs aren't there. It's just that gold kind of amber hue that it adds is kind of nice to some, you know, gives me some ideas with red stripe and orange dream, that kind of stuff. But the cool thing is they do have my line of black pastel mapped out. And I know RGI does, and I think Charlie was working on it. And I think he's going to hit it here soon, but I haven't talked to him in a while about it. But the cool part with that is I've gotten so many requests over the years of, is this your line, through emails. And this is when the line started to kind of differentiate from the others. And people were like asking me questions. You know, they wanted me to tell them in an email that it was that it was mine. And there was a premium. I mean, there still is a premium that I asked for my line over the typical, just because it does different stuff and it's not as abundant. So from a supply and demand standpoint, and if you want more oranges in this particular busier pattern, that's kind of how I sell it to people. If you want less oranges, which you might, then you can go with this other line. If you're going more of like an axanthic route with it, I probably wouldn't use my line. I'd use another line to kind of go into that less color, which could be something that people want to do. But it is cool that they can test it now. And a lot of times people will send me pictures, and I could tell with a straight black pastel, I can give them like, it looks like my line. I would you know, still get it tested, but you have something worth testing there. If you want it to be my line, send it out. It looks like mine because this and that, and I'm seeing these shapes of the pattern. But other people just kind of, you know, will send me like a 5 or 6 gene animal with my line in it, or a black pastel in it. And I'm like, I have no idea. Everything's so drowned out. Like, and I'm not going to, you know, if it's something I can't see, I'm like, I can't. I'll tell them like, just get it tested. It's $40, you know?
Yeah. Were you surprised that it tested differently?
Yeah, I was kind of happy if, like, when I heard it last about a year, the holiday season previous to this one. So 2023 is when a customer of mine sent one of my sheds out of my line or my mail or whatever they got from me to RGI, and they said it's not black pastel. And I was like, well, clearly it is. I mean, it was a visual black pastel like Yellow Belly or something. And then I heard I contacted Ben, and I go, I heard from somebody else too, the similar thing. And I was like, this is two stories I've heard that my line's not testing as black pastel, but it produces super black pastels. It produces pewters. It produces onyx, which is a great combination, I think, with het red. Like, I still like het red stuff, but it produces all the classic allelic combos as well as the super. I'm like, clearly it's a black pastel. And then they kind of said, well, it's a different line. Similar to Yellow Belly has a couple lines. I think Ultramil has a couple lines. But what Ben said was, with the other lines of Morph, you can't see really the differentiation between the two lines. Whereas with mine, it's more evident that you can put it next to another one, a regular black pastel, or just the normal ones that were out there, and be like, this is different because this, and that. But I've also heard there's like a third, maybe even a fourth line out there as well, because there's another line that isn't testing for mine or the other black pastel. But I think
I heard about it.
I haven't seen enough of them to see whether or not there's a visual difference, or I'm sure there is. It's just one of those deals that you just got to see a lot of it, and then you're like, you know, you can pick out little subtleties, and it all depends on the subtleties you want to work with. And that's kind of the name of what we're doing. Like, sometimes it's just that little difference from what you're seeing is going to make a bigger difference down the road. And a good gene with that is, and this is a gene that I think I have it in my collection based on what people tell me, is Scrambler. it's something that I want to see more regular scrambler looking snakes or morphs instead of the combos. But I think that's an enhancer that it's maybe on its own. I'd probably looked at a bunch of them and said, well, that's a cool looking normal, and never really did anything with it.
Didn't Chris say he got Scrambler from you?
Chris Hernan claims he got his scrambler stuff from me. And I think I know the snake that the first one he got, but he's bought from me over the years. Like, so he said he's gotten multiple snakes from me that had scrambler. So I think I know the look. I mean, from based on what he's shown and how he described his, and I have that in my collection now. I don't know that I'm going to pursue it a ton. I think if it's there, I'm going to maybe target it, but I'm not going to go out of my way to do anything with it quite yet. It's just cool that I think I have snakes where I've labeled, like, I think this might be, and it's all about the stretching of the pattern and raising it a little bit from the belly and color. So he said that. And the thing is, Mark Mandick also has scrambler, and he's done some cool stuff with it. And he claims he got it from Oz. So if you think about that, Oz and I were in it he was in it about a little less than a year ahead of me. In 2001, I started in 2002, and we would flip snakes back and forth. Like, if I produced a lot of this, I'd get my yellow bellies from him. He'd get black pastel stuff from me. My black pastel was an import in 2005 or 6. I have to look at the records, but I got it from Ian, and I don't know what it was a captive hatched, sent over here in a bag. And that scrambler may have come in with that, because that thing was wild looking, my original black pastel. And that could have been it, or it could be a yellow belly that I got from Oz around maybe a year later. I noticed I started producing crazier looking stuff then. So I think one of us got it and gave it to the other one, like a disease. And then we spread it to other people. It sounded like. Yeah, but it's so subtle that, like, unless you have an eye and patience, and what Chris has done is really cool, because I like, he's kind of doing a similar thing to what I did, and what Oz originally did. But you take a gene or two and you just work it to death. And you'll never work it to death because there's too many options. There's too many new genes coming in. But, like, I always find it cool to see, like, somebody work, like for me, I try to work black pastel into a lot of stuff. Now, granted, my volume is not what the big guys are, so I can only do so much based on what I have in shelf space, rack space. But then you look at Chris, and he really maximized, like, the high OD, and he's got another one too, deep orange. But, like, he makes stuff that you see it, you're like, that's Chris's snake. And it used to be the same with Oz. You see Oz's snakes, you're like, well, that's an Oz snake before you even see who made it. And he worked the original OD into all kinds of stuff. And then you see, like, John Degg with the Axanthic stuff. I think he made, like, the Stormtrooper and, like, all those Axanthic combos that are really cool. But that's what he does. That's his thing. If you want that gene, you go to that guy. And you think about Marshall Mendez with did a ton of Ultramel combos before a lot of people did. Like, he was very, he had a lot of Ultramel clown stuff. And I like when people do that, because that's a great kind of system to have, where it's like, pick a gene, say I like blackhead stuff and I like red stripe. Just work that into everything and try to hit on the supers and try to isolate the best examples and just line breed the heck out of it. And that's what Chris Herman's done. He's just line bred the heck out of, like, the Orange Dream and kept the best examples back. And he makes really crazy looking stuff because of that. And that's the one thing, like, if you don't have any ideas in this hobby, you don't have to, like, chase the big top money projects. Just get a project that you don't see people, like, working to death, and work it into things that you think, just make that your base and your cornerstone project for everything. Put all kinds of stuff with that gene and really like see what you can get out of it, because there's untapped potential with most anything. And I like, take chocolate for example. There's super chocolates, and chocolate's a really cool gene because it adds a nice color and pattern, and it's subtle, but it's not subtle, and it's allelic with, like, spot nose, so you can make some really crazy stuff there. Those are the kind of, like, that's what I would shoot for if I was giving people advice who are just getting in. I'm like, don't chase what's already here. Just pick a gene or two that's not overworked has some desire. It's not like something that the market doesn't want, and just work it into projects where you don't see a whole lot of that happening. That makes sense too. Like think about like the color interactions and the patterns. And that would be the advice. A lot of people ask me like they're getting in, like what to do. I'm like, it's tough now. It's a quick market, like we were saying with the genetic testing. That's kind of the downside. I never answered your question. I said the good side is you can find this stuff out without the weight and the just kind of wasting females to try to prove out males or vice versa. Now you can pay $40 and figure that out immediately. Right. But the downside with that is we're moving so fast that if you don't keep up, you're going to be left behind. And you see all these people getting out, every so often you'll see a name. You're like, holy cow, that guy's been in it for 10, 15 years, which seems like a long time. But they came in, they made a name for themselves, and now they're out. And it could be just, I don't want to compete with this much supply, or maybe I just don't. I don't have anything unique. I just had a lot of what everyone else did, and now I'm just getting overwhelmed with the supply is so much that people aren't turning to me anymore, and I don't want to do the price cut everybody, because that's not really going to lead to anything good for anyone. But that will be the downside, I think, of the testing, because it allows for people to just make stuff easier. And I kind of like the hard way, honestly, because that's kind of how I came into it. You put in your time and you wait, and you're disappointed or you're really happy. And then sometimes it takes 4 breeding seasons to even figure it out. Like I was doing head-to-head albinos when I first got in, because I was cheap and I didn't want to buy an albino. So I was like doing the het route. And it took me my 3rd clutch from that original pairing to even see a visual. And the two parents were, one was from Ralph Davis and one was from Barchek. First snake I ever bought was from Barchek. It was a het albino female. And I waited a year and I got a het albino, het Jolliffe axanthic, possible het VPI axanthic from Ralph. And I just bred those two together, and I kept a lot of the females, because that's how I kind of eventually got the Jolliffe snow. I don't even know, like that thing going. But it was and that's the thing. That's what I'm saying. Like, but when I hit those albinos, it was like 0, 0, and then 3 out of 5. So that 3 out of 5 year, I was like, right before I was going to it was 2007 Tinley, and I drove out there with Outback from Ian from Outback and Oz, and we set up, and I saw Barchek, and I was hanging out with his nephew, was helping him at the table, and we were kind of like, I was helping Oz and Barchek's nephew was helping him, so we kind of hung out a lot and let like the big dogs like interact more. But I was telling him, I was like, man, I got a snake from your uncle a few years back, and I thought it wasn't, there's something up, and then all of a sudden it hit these albinos. I was super stoked at the time just to have those visuals in my collection, and it wasn't anything like crazy at the time, but it was cool to finally hit what I originally, the first snake that I bought in the BallPython industry, the first mutation was albino, and they were cool looking. I mean, they were like yellow and white with the red eyes. So it just jumped out. It was color, and it had like a nice look, and they were at a good price point back then. You can make a little bit of cash. But then they quickly went crazy after that. Like after 2007, just all kinds of chaos came with mass breeding at that point.
I want to talk about that here in just a second, and I also want to get into the longevity. But I'm gonna take a quick sponsor break, and then we get back and tap into that. Be right back.
Known for his innovative approach to genetic shed testing and top quality ball pythons, Grey Rider Reptiles also excels in exceptional customer service and responsiveness. With a quick turnaround time, Charlie ensures you get the service you want and need. Visit shedtesting.com to explore his offerings and experience the best in the business. Don't miss out. Head to shedtesting.com today and unlock the power of your breeding projects.
Peace and love, family. We invite you into the heart of our serenity, Ancestral Royal Pythons. At Ancestral Royal Pythons, we're not just breeders, we're nurturers of love and growth. Each of our high-end ball pythons is a tribute to the grandeur of the natural world and our dedication to quality. Reach out today and bring one of our creations into your home. This is Ancestral Royal Pythons. Your journey begins here.
Here's to the exciting world of Ebony and Ivory reptiles. From unforgettable parties and events to keeping and hatching some of the dopest reptiles in the reptile hobby, we're all about education, quality, integrity, and respect. Hit us up and see how we can help make your next project a reality. Experience Ebony and Ivory reptiles, where fascination meets fun.
Ebony and Ivory Reptiles.
Big shout out to the sponsors. Appreciate you, fellas. So you're saying it stuff went crazy? So speak about that a little bit.
Yeah, it went crazy in kind of a bad way. And this goes back to the longevity, like crazy in supply again. And I kind of touched on this at the beginning when we first started speaking about the 2007, 2008. A lot of investors got in that didn't. I'm sure there was a little bit of interest for the reptiles, but it was more about big money. I think it was known that like money was involved in this industry trade, and it's starting to blow up. So there was a lot of just mass producing, like I said, of like the incomplete dominance to normals. And this was back, a lot of people say about how you used to be able to get big adult females for $1 a gram, and it was true. I mean, if you think about it, people were paying. I was paying $300 for like 500 gram females. Now, sometimes it wasn't quite matched up, but like that's just a normal. Like if you had any size on it, it wasn't a hatchling, you were paying for it. And the big, just big adult females were going for ridiculous amounts because you could take that female and throw like a cinnamon at the time, a spider on the and produce, immediately $10,000 clutch or $15,000 depending on the odds and how many eggs she had or laid. I remember spiders were selling like crazy at like just stupid amounts, like 15,000. I think, I don't remember at the time. I think it was known that there wasn't a super form, but it was like 15 to 20K the first couple of years. They were just like popping.
Wow.
Like 2000, probably 6-ish, 5, 6. I mean, I didn't get one until later than that, like much later. And pinstripes were another big one. It was just crazy money, and people were mass producing them though. What happened though is we created a bubble, not like we have now. I wouldn't call now a bubble because there's still so much combinations now, whereas back in the day you're talking about one gene. Like I want to go buy a Mojave male and a shit ton of normal females and breed him to all of those females. And I also want to do that with spider and pinstripe and cinnamon and black pastel and yellow belly, and het red axanthic at the time. I think when I got into that, they were 3,000 for het reds. And that was a gene at the time that I liked because it produced silver and black babies. Now, as they grow, they become more like a cream colored adult. Still a cool snake. I think there's still potential with that. I mean, it sounds silly, but just, I don't think anyone new would say that, but someone that has seen like some really cool combos back in the day from them, I still like to work with them. I still like het reds with black pastels because they make an even more intense silver and black baby. And I've produced some really cool stuff with that. It's just one of those deals that you have to get the market would have to like buy into it again. And I don't know that the new people, and no one's really pushing it. But yeah, back in the day, that it kind of blew up then. And there were many times at that point when the supply was really high, and then the demand was so from like say 2007 to like 2011. It was pretty lean to sell stuff. And you'd have to have visual, it'd be recessive stuff would sell. Pies would still sell really well, but anything like, they got to a point where all those codoms just took nosedives. Like I spent $6,000 on my first black pastel, and it was an $8,000 asking price, but in a package, I was able to get it down to $6,000. that snake, I sold it 3 years later because it only bred one female for me. In year 2, when it was of size, and you know, and now looking back on that, that's just me being new too and expecting it to breed, like expecting the male to breed at a year. Typically they do. I mean, this one didn't, and sometimes that happens. Some males are just they're not ready yet, or they're just predisposed to be a lazy breeder. I may have had that as well. So that year 1 it didn't breed. Year 2 it didn't breed. Year 3 it bred one yellow belly for me, and then I sold it. I got eggs from it, but I sold it for, I think it was like $600. And granted, this was a $6,000 snake 3 years earlier, $600. So I was pretty pissed, needless to say. And at this point, I'm like, what am I even doing? Like, you know, it's like buying a stock at its all-time high and then selling it when it's at its low. That's not a good plan.
Right.
But that's what I did. I took my most expensive purchase and I sold it for peanuts. Fortunately, the eggs I got from it hatched. I think it was 1.2 black pastel yellow bellies. So I bred it to a big yellow belly female, and they were crazy looking. They were like I immediately took pictures and sent to Oz, and I'm like, is this normal? Like, is this what a black pastel yellow belly looks like? And he was like, I don't think so. And at the time, we didn't have Morph market, but you know, you had king snake and fauna classifieds, and those are the two big ones. I don't even think BallPython.net was around yet. It might have just started. That was another forum. Or Bush League. And you get on these forums and just look at pictures and you search Google. And even if you search Google to this day, black pastel yellow belly, one of my original snakes comes up from that first clutch. And it's pretty wild looking. The oranges and ambers and just pattern is just destroyed. And that's when I was like, well, that's really cool. And then I kept waiting for other people to post similar stuff. And I never really saw anything that was like mine. So it took me a while to figure out that mine was different. But in that same time frame, going to the market sucking, it sucked because of oversaturation. And I wanted to get out all the time. I was thinking I'm spending, and this sounds stupid in today's, like what I have now, but I had a small collection. I'm like, I'm spending $50 a week on rats. And then I start thinking that's $200 a month. And then I'm thinking yearly, $2,400 a year that I'm just throwing in the wind for these snakes that are like, the prices were just dropping because of overproduction. And I would talk to Oz. I'm like, I'm just ready. I'm just ready to freaking get rid of all these snakes. And he'd tell me, he's like, just hold out. He's like, just, you know, I'm still selling and things are good here. Just make some stuff and it'll sell. And I must have talked to him like every year during that period, like once or twice, like, yeah, it's not fun. I'm just making snakes and they're not really, everybody else has already made and the prices have gone down so much. But fortunately, he would always talk me off the ledge. Like, he's like, just hang out. He's like, the market's still good. It's just, you just got to do different stuff. He's like, you got to buy some new genes. He kept telling me, like, spend money and get new genes in your collection. Like, basically what I was telling you earlier, or you're going to get left behind. That's something that you just see over time. And I wasn't doing it. And I was getting left behind at that point. The only thing that saved me was that black pastel clutch. And what I started making with my black pastel, because then I had a male black pastel yellow belly. And then I started doing everything with him the following year. And he was a good breeder, unlike the original father that was the wild one or the import. So that saved me. Had that clutch not happened, I probably would have packed it up and within a year or two in around 08, 09 and just said, screw it. It was fun to do, but it's not something I want to continue to throw money at. And I kind of see that today with people like, and I kind of relate where people are getting out. They got in 2018, 19 when the market got hot again and everybody was hyping it up. And now they find themselves in the spot where they're like, well, I'm just like everybody else now. And that's what I was saying earlier. Like, you have to find out how to not be like everyone else. You have to figure out and be creative and strategic and lucky. I was lucky that I got that male import. I was lucky that Oz, when we bought it, we were together and he goes, which one do you want? And there was two. There was one that looked standard and there was one that looked crazy. And he was already buying a bunch of other stuff. So the deal was whoever gets the good one, we'll just flip some snakes back and forth. So we'll have both lines in our collection.
Right.
And I don't think I ever took anything from him. Just once we realized like that mine was producing crazy looking stuff. So it's just, you got to get like, that was lucky there. It was also lucky that like I worked at my day job with Oz before we even knew we owned snakes. We passed each other in the hall, and that's something that like it's an invaluable thing that I don't take for granted. I appreciate. He's got a very strategic mind, and he's always thinking steps ahead, and to have him in your corner at all times, a phone call away, a text away, was really helpful, because like I said, he talked me out of getting out multiple times. He'd give me advice like, this is what you need to do, or you have that, right? We'd be talking, he's like, you have these genes, right? I'm like, yeah. He's like, why don't you get this, or I have this perfect whatever male that would really be cool with what you have. And then that kind of stuff, having like that mind and like that mentor pretty much available daily. Most people don't have that. And it's hard for me to say, well, go to start calling Oz or Justin or Bob or Billy and just harassing them for information. No one's going to do that. And they're not going to like, I was lucky that I came up with him, and I saw him clawing his way too when he had pastels and albinos and normals. I knew him. That's when I met him, and I was like, I thought they were great. But it's funny to think back, that was his collection at the time. He had some boas, and he just got into ball pythons, and he had the basic stuff in the early 2000s, to see how he got lucky too with the Orange Dream. Similar to how I got lucky with the black pastel, different line, he got lucky with the Orange Dream stuff. And I remember when he got it, like he showed it to me, and it was getting to the point where there was a lot of little things that people were trying to make something out of nothing. Like look at this, it's got a clear white belly, it's got to be something. And that was a big thing back in the day. Like people would sell them for more if they had a solid white belly, because they thought that they were produced like super forms or whatnot, unproven. And you buy them at shows, you'd spend like another $10 for clear belly hatchlings. And he had this Orange Dream at the time. We didn't know what it was, and he showed it to me. I was like, that's cool, but I mean, you see different stuff all the time that it's not proving out. And I was just like, well, it is what it is. But that really worked out for him. So he got lucky there. And I think a lot of it is luck and strategy. And there's people that never brought in like something unique and one of a kind and like an Orange Dream or just something wild. And they still have done great in this hobby because they have good vision and foresight with what they want to do. And they have good plans. They're not just following the trend and trying to do what everyone else is doing. They're thinking like, well, I like what he's doing, but I'm going to take that and I'm going to take it a step further. Or I'm going to take that idea, but put it completely into this grouping of genes and try to make something similar. And that's what I was telling you earlier. You get ideas by seeing others and be inspired by like what Justin shows, on the videos that he puts out. And I'm like, well, hell, I really like the Kraken stuff. I think that's awesome. Never pursued it because I don't have a GHI in my collection.
Oh, you don't have any GHI?
Nope. I love GHI, but I never pursued the Kraken stuff, but I love it. And I think I could do some really cool stuff with my black pastel. And I mean, but I'm just, at this point, you got to like pick your project wisely, but that's not an easy thing to hit either. That's not like I'm just going to come into the scene and just make them. That's like Pompeii's. I made a Pompeii this year, first attempt. It took me 6 months. Right? Yeah, it was my first year. The cool part is mine's had ultramel, so I don't know if that's going to be too much orange for the ultramel. Might drown out some of the subtleties that make the Pompeii really unique, or it might add to it. Because like I said, I love ultramel red stripe stuff, and I saw some of the combos that Justin made with yellow belly ultramel and red stripe. I'm like, that's a really different looking orange, and maybe the Pompeii will come out different, but I'm already pot committed. I have too much of it in my collection to not do it. Unlike what we were talking about with the clown and pied combo, I'm going to pursue this one just because it's like it could be good, but it could be too much orange. It could be too much like a super pastel something or another. It's too much.
The ultramel Pompeii. The Pompeii had ultramel that you got on your page. That's real nice.
Yeah, and that turned out, I was happy to see that because that was my main goal. I wanted to see what my line of black pastel would do with the Pompeii, because it's kind of an iconic snake. It was a very I mean, there's a handful of snakes you can name, combos, that were like kind of industry boosts and industry changers. That's one. And it's still not easy to hit. Like I have a lot of crap in my rack. I don't have a big collection, but I may not hit one this year, but I'm trying, but not as hard. I'm only trying to do it with the Ultramel stuff because I have a lot of double heads that I raised up over the years that are now all breeding, and I can possibly hit that this year visual. But that Ultramel, or that Het Ultramel Pompeii, did show me that my line makes good Pompeis. I'm not going to say it's the best I've ever seen, but it's in the top. There's some that I've seen that you can find on, pictures of. You're like, that's really nice. Mine competes with it, but I've also seen some that are like, I don't know that that's necessarily like a good one. It's a Pompeii, so I'll give it props for being a hard snake to hit, but it's not really something that's like as desirable as some of the top looking ones. And I look for color and pattern, like really busy pattern, really red, brick red, oranges. Sometimes they're more like on the brown, a little toned down orange, and the pattern isn't quite as busy. I've seen a few of those, but so far it's a one of one. So hopefully I can produce a few more this year to kind of nail that down, whether or not, not that it matters at this point. I got one. I wanted to see it, but I want to take it a step further now, and that's the goal. I really like the DG Pompeii that Justin made, because that's not adding any color into it. That's just adding straight, like, I don't want to say contrast, but like as it ages, it's going to keep those colors, and the lines are going to be prettier and cleaner as it ages. So I kind of had that by accident in my collection going on now. Whereas this year I have one shot to hit it, that particular combo. But it's something I'm working since I have it. I mean, I think that's a cool thing to have. And plus I like the fact that you can sub out like the main, if you take the main gene, and I call it the main gene because it is in my collection, the black pastel out, and you put in Stranger or Chocolate or Hurricane, you can still make the Pompeis. And it seems like you sub out that gene, you can make different looks. Yeah. And granted, I want to keep everyone interested in the black pastel version, but there's other versions, like Blackhead would be cool too. Like, what would be a super Blackhead Pompeii, or a super Blackhead, super red stripe Pompeii? So that's the kind of stuff that keeps me going forward. And it's not a ton of recessives, because I think, like I said, people have gotten very happy or overly excited with hitting those 3 and 4 gene recessives. And sometimes it's just, it's going to be cool because it's hard to hit. Right. And, the work and time is put into it. But it's also like, let's not forget that super incomplete dominants are just like a recessive and can make a better looking snake depending on the genes. And I think we need to keep that in the back of our mind. Like GHI, for example, there's a super GHI that you could start putting with stuff and do similar things or better than like, I mean, there's more dominant, incomplete dominance to work with than there are recessives. And I still think if you have one good recessive, like a puzzle, and like I have some puzzle, yellow belly, black pastel, puzzle ghost stuff that I think is going to be really nice. I want to get red stripe into that. Mm-hmm. And I want to keep like maybe the hypo and the puzzle. There's my recessive like genes that I'm going to work with, but I want to throw all kinds of crazy orange and pattern changers into that to help accentuate the pattern of the puzzle, and the oranges to go with like what the hypo does, and the black pastel and the yellow belly. Like, get Orange Dream in there, makes a good puzzle. Get red stripe in there. Hurricane, got to get some of that in the collection.
I think the supers and the ALS stuff are get rocks.
Yeah, and I look at that because it's like, I don't need 4 recessives in this. It would be cool. I'd love to have a 4 visual recessive snake. It would be just cool to have, because that's not easy to hit. But I think we don't want to sleep on the incomplete dominant super forms, and just kind of don't go back to what I was saying earlier and make those all gray snakes, which is very easy to do. I made it myself, and I was like, well, this kind of sucks, but it's cool. But yeah, think outside the box and know what makes that gray snake, or you just find out the hard way. You're like, well, I put too much into this, and you got to start working backwards and pulling stuff out again. But the cool part is this never ends, and it never will, at least while I'm alive. I mean, that's why I don't think I'll ever stop. I might scale down. I've scaled down this year. Like I said, I'm only doing like 15 clutches, but they're 15. 2 of them are just like play clutches that I want to see what happens. But the other 12 or 13 are going to be, I'm shooting for some pretty big odds, but they're not that big now because I keep, improving my genetics every year to make those odds smaller to hit those big, multi-recessive, multi-incomplete dom superform snakes. So even if I scaled it back to 5 clutches a year, I want those 5 clutches a year to mean something. I don't want them to be something I created 2 years ago. I want them to be cutting edge, new stuff every time. And that's kind of how you survive long term. Going back to your question, you get lucky. You're tight with someone who's like an industry leader by accident. You accidentally import a snake that turns out to be like a uniquely new, different gene that people gravitated towards, and that really helped. And then you just keep shooting for stuff, and you don't stop like being creative with your thinking. And if you start to get a little bit too big, scale back. Like I see people just getting out completely. I'm like, I have too much invested in years in those shelves that I can't just get out. I mean, I got to see some of these projects to fruition because I put so much time into it, and it's not even the money. It's just, I want to see what the heck hatches out. Like at this point, it's more interesting for me than trying to make a buck, because that was cool for a while. Everyone loves the money part of it, but I really want to see the look, and I want to produce stuff that like is jaw dropping. And with a small collection, it's hard to do, but the way you do it is you don't have any like everything. It means something, and like I was saying, everything with those adult females, if I'm not using them, they're taking up space where I could have something that I'm really striving for that's going to be unique and one of a kind. And I want one of a kind stuff every clutch. Now that's not going to happen, but that's the goal. I want one snake out of there to be new and wow and jaw dropping type of stuff.
100%. Going back a little bit more on like the longevity piece, you've been in it since what, 2002, you said?
Yeah. Yep. That's
so
right.
23 years. I'm sure you've seen a lot of people come and go. Do you see, and you've touched on this some, but maybe you can speak to it a little bit more. Do you see like a lot of recurring themes with people who exit? Like, do you feel like it's more so investors, people getting burned out, or just really kind of like a combination of all that?
I think it's funny because sometimes you don't notice it until you're like, I haven't seen this guy in like a year, and then you remember their name and they're out, and then other people announce it. Like if I ever got out, I probably wouldn't announce it. I would just kind of quietly go into the shadows. But I see, it's basically people are coming in, and it's hard because again, I've had some good fortune by luck. But people are coming in, they're buying stuff. They're buying in like maybe 5,000, 10,000. They get their projects going. And what's cool today is not cool when those projects are hatching, unfortunately. And we've seen this, like I said, the speed of everything right now. What was cool in 2021, I'm not doing anymore. Like there's still some stuff that I'm pursuing that you can say is still cool. But like a lot of it it's kind of played out. Now it'll come back. But like right now, that particular project's played out, and you see people coming in and they're producing stuff where I'm like, what's your goal? Like, I know everybody wants to make their first couple clutches. It's exciting to see those eggs, have them hatch out. And you put a lot of emphasis on those snakes, where in reality, they're not really special, but they're special to you because you bought the babies, you raised them up, you bred them, you hatched out these snakes. So these snakes mean a lot to you, but to the market, they're kind of run of the mill. They may even be a step behind run of the mill because you just wanted to breed, you wanted to get some clutches. And I see that's the most common thing. That's not everybody. Some people come in and they knock it out of the park. They know exactly what they're doing. They have a plan. But other people come in and they want to get a male with a female, and then the whole process, they make like 5-6 clutches that year produce, and it's 30-40 babies. But of those 30-40 babies, there might be 1 or 2 that's unique, but that person's kind of still an unknown. So from a purchasing standpoint, you want to make sure that you're vetting who you're buying from. You might not know who they are. They don't put out there very much who they are. They're kind of in the shadows doing their own thing, and they're not producing like one of a kind jaw dropping stuff that first year. Now they have, in addition to the 10 that they bought 3-4 years ago, they have another 40 that they're going to just find. It's hard to move those. unless you had projects that you were really good and you really smart, and those projects lasted, through those years. I think that's what we're seeing now, because back in the day, we'd see people get in, they're trying to make a quick buck. I mean, you could buy a Mojave for $4,000 and breed it to normals, and you're all in it. Like, you buy a couple of normals for a few $100 each, and that's what you pay, about $200-300, for a normal female, breed them all together. And by the time those babies were hatching, it was like me with the black pastel. That $4,000 animal is now selling for $400, we'll say. Well, people, that's still good if you made a bunch and you were able to sell them, but everybody did it. And people with names are in front of you always, because people are gonna gravitate towards the names they recognize for safety. Because sending money, around at the time, it seems to be. I don't really hear of a lot of people getting scammed as much now. I mean, it still happens, but not back in the day where people would send money and nothing would happen. The people would just run away with it, the sellers. That doesn't seem to be as prevalent, but I'm sure it is. But back in the day, that kind of would, you'd have that. But no one was buying, not enough people were buying to sustain the longevity of the hobby from someone who just got in. And I was there. Producing hypos as my first snakes that I was selling. And they were selling females were going for, $300, I think I was selling them for at the time, maybe $400. And that wasn't bad, because I wasn't invested very heavily monetarily. I was just trying to build up my collection. So if I'd hatch out 6 or 7 het hypos, I'd keep 2 or 3 for myself and sell the rest off for just to tell myself that I could sell, get my name out there, and that kind of deal. And I think people I don't know if they're lazy or they just don't put themselves out there. Some of the original people just wanted a quick buck. And anyone will tell you now that it's hard to make a quick buck in this industry. You have to work, and you have to be on top of your game. You have to sell yourself. Now with social media, we had message boards back then, but we didn't have Facebook or any of that kind of stuff. So you'd have to kind of know people from message board handles. I was just Tom Barnhart. That's why I was very uncreative with that. And it stuck. So people started calling my line the Barnhart line once it kind of became a thing. I didn't name it. So I just kind of took the vanilla route, and I'm like, well, screw it. I'm just going to be Tom Barnhart, BallPythons. But people would have handles and different names on the chats, and you'd be like, well, this guy knows what he's talking about. And you kind of go back and forth with them a little bit. And if they're not an asshole, that was even better, because there was still a lot of egos back then, where you don't see them as much now, but you had a lot of guys really wearing on their sleeve that they knew everything, and you don't question them. And if you don't do it their way, you're an idiot, and they let you know on the message boards.
You still see some of that on Facebook.
Yeah, it's still, but yeah, it was a big thing back then. And I think it was because the old timers like my age now back then, and I was young in my 20s, coming up, and they probably didn't want the competition, even though the whole thing is you're selling to your competition, and your competition eventually becomes, I was at a show, the Gettysburg show, a couple weeks ago in PA, and I'm walking around like, man, these guys, I don't know who they are. I don't know their names, but they have cooler stuff than I have. I don't even know who they are. That's the difference now between now and then. Back then, if someone had really cool stuff, you've heard of them. Have you seen them around, especially locally, like Jersey, Maryland, Pennsylvania, Virginia? I see people, I'm like, I don't know who this guy is, but his table's cooler than mine. That's why I'm not vending. I'd rather just do it. I don't want to waste a day vending. And it sounds like an excuse, but I do fine online, and I keep my numbers low enough. If I have my numbers higher, I would have to, out of necessity, to move animals. But I was talking to I always like to go to that show. It's a couple times a year. I talk to Chad Hawkers there, Mike Osman, Brian from Bainamai Exotics, and Tim Harvey. Those guys are always there, and I always just kind of get a feel for the market and what they're working on, how things are going for them. And the big theme this year is, the conversation I kept having with these guys are, what do we do? What's next? What's the focus? We're all kind of seeing how things are playing out. I'm like, but what do you get into? What's the big project, if there is? I don't know where to vote my time and money and energy, because I'm always thinking this is what I want to do. But now I'm kind of confused. I don't know what I want to do other than work with what I have already built up. But what's the next thing I do? The next step, the 3-4 year plan. That's where I'm struggling now, whereas I didn't used to struggle with that. And I think a lot of it is there's so many genes.
Right.
it's exponentially gotten so big with genetics, where it wasn't like that in the early 2000s. It was pretty simple. You pick the genes that you pick pied and you put anything in it and you sell them. That's it. That was the magic formula. And you couldn't go wrong with that. Now it's like you almost have to roll the dice and be like, this is what I'm going to do. It's either going to hit or miss. And I'm cool with that either way. But yeah, all of us guys are like mid-tier, like our names are known, but we're like, we don't have a ton of stuff. But it's definitely cool to see, like, you know, Chad has got some really good stuff on his table. And I'm always like just drooling over it when I'm there. And I'm pointing out some stuff on like Brian's table from Beta My Exotics. Like he had I think it was a hypo puzzle OD. I'm like, that thing is awesome. And the price on it was good. I'm like, are you getting any inquiries? Like, are people like, you know, that thing should fly off your table? And he's just kind of like, it's a cool snake. But right now, you know, I'm like, I don't know what else you put into it. I mean, I could put stuff into that, but it's like, it's just it's a confusing time, because I think there's so much supply, and people who you don't know who they are producing stuff that's better than yours. And that's always something you take pride in. You want to stay at the top of that wave. And now it's like all of us are starting to get at the top, and it depends on the volume and the resources that they have to make stuff. Whereas I have very little resources, but I'm trying to concentrate that into specific projects. But like I said, those could be duds. You never know until you see them. So it's interesting now. That's pretty much me putting my ear to the ground and trying to hear what the public is doing, going to that show. I kind of wanted to go to the Charlotte show tomorrow, but you know what? I coach my girls softball, and I have twins.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So opening day was Saturday, but it was rained out. They've already called it, and that Charlotte show is like 5 hours away. I was telling Mike Osmond last week, like I would like to go down there because he's vending, and I was like, that'd be cool because that's a bigger show close to home. There's not many big shows close to Maryland. And that would kind of be cool to see. But you know what? I'm not going to think about it. I actually have that rental that I talked to you earlier about that I gotta clean that up this weekend.
Gotcha. The Charlotte show is nice. It's a nice one if you get a chance to make it to it, though.
Yeah, I've heard that one is good. And like I said, Charlotte's not that far from me. So maybe the next one. I can't on a whim just disappear anymore for a weekend like I used to. Too much keeping me at home.
Yeah, it is hard to get away sometimes.
Yeah.
Hey man, well, we over the 90-minute mark. It's been a great episode. We definitely gonna have to do a part 2 and catch up some more.
Yeah, I always worry about like what am I going to talk about, but once you get going, it's like there's just so much stuff that like when you tap into the right question, I'm like, oh, that's got me thinking here. But there's so much stuff too, like so many stories that were kind of cool from back in the day too. That you know, just you think about like how I've gotten here 23 years later. It's cool to see that both sides, like when I was a young up and comer and now whereas I'm like kind of older, I don't want to say that, but I am. And you look back to people that are getting in, you're like, what would I tell that guy? What's my advice? And it's not necessarily like, you know, I don't know if it's going to help them, but this is what my brain tells you to do for success. So
how old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
I just turned 50 this year. So that's why it's weird to say, because I still feel like that 27-year-old that was walking around the show in Valley Forge looking at all these snakes and looking at Ralph's Platinums. The first year he had him on display from the Platy Daddy and all that stuff. He was there. Barchek was there. I think Will Bankston and Bob Clark were there. And it was a big show. It was an NARBC show. Didn't last very long. It was like a year or two there. But it was cool to just jump into that like and see at the time. Pastels were awesome to look at. You know, I think there was maybe a Mojave or two at that show, but mainly it was like Ralph's, Platinums, and Lessers were insane. I mean, think about that. Think about a Platinum now and a Lesser now. Well, I mean, I guess it's the same. The Platy Daddy was kind of a weird anomaly. But think about a Lesser now. Like, that was the shit, that show. Like, Oz and I beeline to Ralph's table. Ralph wasn't even selling them. He just had them there on display, like advertising. And he was that those things were going for, I think they were like 20,000 at the time. And we were just like, holy shit, we got to get our hands on one of those and then put it on a bunch of normals.
Yeah, we're not that far apart in age.
Yeah, that's
45.
Yeah, and Robbie said he knows you down in Florida. Robbie Kirkland.
Yeah,
I met up with him.
It's always good chatting with him.
Yeah, he's cool. He's got a good mind too. I wish he was still in it, but I think he's busy with life and work. But
did you catch that episode when he was on talking?
Yeah. I mean, I said hi to him in the comments. Like, yeah, he's cool. I like him. He's pretty grounded, and he was doing some good things. But I totally get. I talked to him this winter. We met in Frederick, Maryland, and he just had a place and had some coffee. And he said he misses it. His identity is a little bit. It's not the same without the snakes, but he says it is nice having free time to do other things in life. So I totally get that. I think I'd miss it too, to the point where it's daily. You do daily snake stuff, and if I didn't have daily snake stuff to do, maybe it's keeping me from doing bad things. I don't know.
Keep you out of trouble.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool, man. Well, again, appreciate you coming on. Like I said before, definitely long overdue, and can't wait to get you back on.
Yeah, it's definitely a good time, and it went by quick. I can't believe we're already at the end. So that was a good show, I think. Hopefully.
Yeah, great show, man. Lots of years of experience, so definitely a lot of stories to tell, a lot of insight, and I'm sure everybody enjoyed it, man. So again, appreciate it. Appreciate everybody in the comments, man. Y'all sliding through, showing support. Replay Gang, tap in. Make sure you leave hashtag replay gang. Appreciate the support, but that's gonna be it for tonight. So until next time, for Clutch Conversations, Mike, that's Tom, the lovely lady behind the scenes is Takar. Thank y'all for coming out. Be blessed. Peace.